It was a quiet Monday in the small town of Delphi, Indiana, where everyone knows your name, where crime is a rare whisper, and where children ride their bikes freely through tree-lined streets. But on February 13th, 2017, the tranquility of Delphi was shattered forever. This is the case of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, the Delphi murders. A case that remained unsolved for years until 2022. Abigail "Abby" Williams was just 13 years old. Bright, soft-spoken, and artistically inclined, Abby loved photography, arts and crafts, and spending time with her family and her best friend, Liberty. Libby German, 14, was the more outspoken of the two, athletic, confident, and naturally curious about the world. She played volleyball and loved science. The two girls were inseparable, sharing secrets, dreams, and laughter, the kind of best friends who seemed almost like sisters. On that day in February, they had the day off from school. It was a rare, sunny winter afternoon, and the girls decided to take advantage of it by going on a hike at a popular local trail, the Monon High Bridge Trail, an abandoned railroad bridge-turned walking path nestled in Delphi's woods. They were dropped off by Libby's older sister, Kelsey German, on County Road 300 North, east of the Hoosier Heartland Highway, around 1:35 p.m. It was supposed to be a fun little adventure, the kind that small-town kids take all the time. But they never came home. At 2:07 p.m., Libby posted a photo on Snapchat. It showed Abby walking along the high-weathered Monon High Bridge, arms raised slightly for balance, as she carefully approached the gaps in the wooden railroad planks. This was the last known image of the girls alive. When they didn't show up at the designated pickup spot around 3:15 p.m., family members immediately became concerned. By 5:30 p.m., police were notified, and a search began, initially with hopes that they were just lost in the woods. But those hopes were dashed the next day. On February 14th, 2017, Valentine's Day, around noon, a volunteer searcher made a grim discovery less than a mile from the abandoned Monon High Bridge. The bodies of Abigail and Liberty were found on the north bank of Deer Creek, in a wooded area difficult to access. Authorities quickly labeled the deaths as homicides, but they refused to release details of how the girls were killed, citing investigative strategy. That secrecy would become a pattern. For years, law enforcement held tight to key details of the case, fueling endless speculation and theories. But there was one critical piece of evidence they did reveal, one that Libby had the presence of mind to capture. As early as February 15, 2017, Indiana State Police began circulating a still image of an individual reportedly seen on the Monon High Bridge near where the girls were killed. The grainy photograph captured a Caucasian male, hands in pockets, head down, walking on the rail bridge towards the girls. A few days later, the person in the photograph, dubbed the Bridge Guy, was named the prime suspect in the double homicide. During the investigation, police discovered that Liberty had turned on her phone's video recorder as a man approached them on the trail. From this footage, investigators released a few still images and a brief audio clip. A man's voice calmly saying, "Guys, down the hill." That short sentence would haunt Delphi and true crime followers for years. At a news conference, officials credited the source of the audio and imagery to German's smartphone, and further regarded her as a hero for having had the presence of mind and fortitude to secretly record the exchange. Police indicated that additional evidence from the phone had been secured, but would not release further details so as not to compromise any future trial. By this time, the reward offered in the case was set at $41,000. The investigation quickly ballooned. The FBI, Indiana State Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Department, and multiple other agencies joined forces. A tip line was opened, and more than 40,000 tips poured in over the next few years. In July 2017, a composite sketch of a suspect was released. A white man with a goatee and a cap pulled low, believed to be between 40 to 50 years old. The public was asked to focus on his clothes and gait, not his face. Then, almost 2 years later, in April 2019, Indiana police announced a new direction the case. A completely different sketch was revealed. This new image showed a much younger man, possibly in his 20s or 30s, with shaggy hair and no facial hair. Police said this new sketch was based on new information and that it now represented their primary suspect. The pivot confused many. Was it the same man aged differently? Were there multiple persons of interest? Investigators stated they had reason to believe that the suspect might be hiding in plain sight and was almost certainly familiar with the Delphi area, from living there, working there, or for other reasons. An additional plea was made for help in identifying the driver of a vehicle left abandoned off the Hoosier Heartland Highway in Delphi at the former Child Services Office between 12 noon and 5 p.m. on the day of the murders. Despite the confusion, one thing was clear. The man in the video was believed to be responsible. As months turned into years, the trail grew cold. Authorities released few updates. Theories exploded online, some plausible, others wild. The town of Delphi was engulfed in suspicion and grief. Meanwhile, Libby and Abby's families never stopped pushing. They kept the girls' memories alive with fundraisers, awareness campaigns, and emotional public appeals. Their pain was deep, but so was their resolve. In September 2022, investigators reviewed a misfiled tip after a volunteer file clerk discovered the error. Richard Allen's last name was recorded incorrectly on the tip when submitted, and the file was therefore wrongly marked as cleared. The file clerk deduced that the tip from years earlier was regarding Richard Allen and brought it to the case's investigator. In the tip, Richard Allen self-reported 3 days after the murders to being on the trails on the day of the murders and seeing 3 girls on the trails. Then, on October 26, 2022, more than 5 years after the murders, Richard Allen, 50 of Delphi, was taken into custody and appeared in court on October 28. On October 31st, Indiana State Police announced that Allen had been charged with 2 counts of murder. Allen was a pharmacy technician at CVS and had lived in Delphi for years. In fact, he had helped process photos for the public during the early investigation, all while hiding in plain sight. He pled not guilty. His trial was originally scheduled to start March the 20th, 2023, but was postponed to allow the defense team review discovery materials. The probable cause affidavit was sealed initially, but on November 29, 2022, Judge Francis Gull issued an order to unseal the probable cause affidavit that led to Allen's arrest. According to a redacted court document, video footage recovered from Liberty German's phone revealed a chilling moment. As a man in a dark jacket and jeans approached the girls, one of the victims could be heard mentioning the word gun. The man then ordered them to go down the hill. Investigators firmly believed that this man was Richard Allen. Further damning evidence came in the form of a .40 caliber unspent round found less than 2 feet from one of the victims' bodies, positioned between the 2 girls. Forensic analysis later confirmed that the round had been ejected from a pistol owned by Allen. The court proceedings were turbulent, with delays, gag orders, and the unsealing of graphic evidence sparking outrage and concern from both legal experts and the community. The legal proceedings began with an unusual degree of secrecy. On December 2, 2022, Judge Francis Gull issued a gag order barring all parties from discussing the case publicly until at least January 2023. The defense quickly filed a motion requesting the trial be moved out of Carroll County, citing concerns that extensive media coverage and the emotionally charged atmosphere in Delphi could bias a local jury. Then, in a shocking turn in October 2023, Judge Gall removed Allen's defense attorneys from the case. The reason? Crime scene photos had been leaked, allegedly from their office, an act she described as gross negligence. However, this decision didn't stand for long. The defense appealed, and the Indiana Supreme Court reinstated the original attorneys. The trial began on October 18, 2024, right in Delphi. From that point forward, Allen's legal team painted a picture of a deeply disturbed man. They claimed he was suffering from psychological distress, had been coerced by investigators, and that the forensic evidence presented by the prosecution was deeply flawed. The most chilling revelation came from Allen himself. Prosecutors stated that while incarcerated, he had confessed to the murders more than 60 times. He allegedly told his wife, his mother, family members, the prison psychologist, even the prison warden. Some confessions were made in person, others over the phone, and some were even written down. In court, the prosecution showed the jury a digitally enhanced 43-second version of the haunting cell phone video recorded by Liberty German. Afterward, a seasoned state police master trooper, who had listened to over 700 of Allen's prison calls, testified with certainty. The voice of the bridge guy is the voice of Richard Allen. Still, the defense pushed back. A clinical psychologist from the Indiana Department of Corrections testified that Allen was suffering from a serious mental illness and had a grave disability. Another neuropsychologist, hired by the defense, testified that Allen suffered from severe depression, work-related stress, and anxiety, a man unraveling under internal and external pressures. After weeks of emotionally grueling testimony, the jury, sequestered throughout the trial, began their deliberations on November 7th. Just 4 days later, on November 11th, 2024, they returned their verdict: guilty on all counts. On December 20th, 2024, Judge Gall handed down the sentence: 65 years for the murder of Liberty German and another 65 years for Abigail Williams. The terms were to be served consecutively, a total of 130 years behind bars. Richard Allen was first transferred to Westville Correctional Facility and later to Pendleton Correctional Facility, where he is now serving out his sentence. Convicted, confined, and at the center of one of the most haunting child murder cases in modern American history. The haunting words remain etched in the minds of millions. Guys, down the hill. A voice, a moment, a murder. Liberty's decision to record her killer gave the world a fighting chance at justice. Because sometimes justice moves slowly, but silence is never the answer. This haunting and unraveling story was brought to you by Crime Chronicles. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping, true crime content. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, evil can hide in the most ordinary of places.